Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen Hendrickson, and you're listening to episode 11 of The Savvy Psychologist. I'll help you meet life's challenges with evidence-based research, a sympathetic ear, and zero judgment. We'll use the best of psychology to help you be happy, relaxed, and most importantly, yourself. A full 40% of Americans don't like to fly. And it makes sense if you think about it. Hurtling across time zones in a metal tube at the height of Everest isn't something our ancestors evolved to face. So we get by on white knuckles, a Xanax, or a pre-flight pit stop at the terminal bar. And about 3% of us are grounded, refusing to fly at all, even if it means being left out of family vacations, spending multiple days on interstate freeways, or never seeing Paris in the springtime. Now, fear of flying can grow from many different roots, such as particularly harrowing turbulence, knowing somebody who was in a plane crash, learning to be afraid as a child from a fearful parent, or media images of crashes, hijackings, or terrorist attacks. So what can you do to keep fear at bay? Here are 5 tips to deliver you safely and sanely from jetway to jetway. Tip number 1, learn about the physics of flight. Learning accurate information is the quickest way to calm your fears. Now, there are a number of extensively detailed and very reassuring websites available that explain how airplanes work, so I won't reinvent the wheel. An online search will land you on an explanation that works for you. But here is a quick primer on some of the most common fears. First, falling out of the sky. The plane can't fall out of the sky any more than you could fall out of a swimming pool of water. Air has mass, just like water, and it's also continuous and secure, just like water. Indeed, you've never walked down the street into a, quote, air pocket where you suddenly couldn't breathe. Such it is at higher altitudes as well. Therefore, you can picture the airplane swimming through supportive continuous air, much as you would swim through water. Second, the engine's failing. So first of all, planes are well maintained and checked regularly, much more often than you would ever think of checking your car engine. Second, there are multiple engines, and even if one goes out, pilots can often restart it, just as you might restart a car engine. And third, in a worst-case scenario, if all the engines go out, even a commercial jetliner can glide, inelegantly, but glide nonetheless, to an emergency landing. Third, turbulence. Turbulence isn't a problem for planes any more than bumps in the road are a problem for cars. So think of the last time you drifted onto the rumble strip on the highway. Those bumps are no more than tiny striations in the concrete, but they cause a major vibration that says, "Wake up!" Likewise, those little ups and downs in the air can have a deceptively big effect. In fact, turbulence is so routine that the plane can often handle it on autopilot, much like cruise control is sufficient for normal bumps in a road. It feels scary, but the biggest danger with routine turbulence is getting coffee on your laptop. Fourth, some crazy guy trying to open the door during flight. Now, even if the doors weren't locked, which they are, opening the door during flight is physically impossible due to the difference in air pressure inside versus outside the plane. So let the crazy guy go to town on the door. At least he's not telling you about his conspiracy theories while you're trying to sleep. Tip number 2. Keep the movie rolling. Now, you may have a preconceived flight tragedy movie in your mind that plays over and over when you have to get on a plane, and I'd be willing to bet that it ends at the most terrifying moment. So, for example, let's say you're frightened of the plane crashing into the ocean. You picture it happening and freeze frame at the most horrifying image. So instead, keep the movie going until you're safe. Picture the flight attendants deploying those yellow slides and then sliding into a raft. Then picture a helicopter or a rescue boat arriving, heading to land or a military carrier, and getting checked out at a hospital if necessary. And then you'd go home. So keep your imaginary movie rolling until you picture yourself safe. You'll feel better knowing that even in the unlikely event that your fear comes true, it doesn't end with the scariest moment. Tip number 3. Don't confuse possibility with probability. Images of US Air 1549 floating in the Hudson River, the Asiana crash at SFO, the mystery of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, and of course, September 11th, are rightfully seared into our collective memory. However, the detailed media coverage of these tragedies makes us perceive that crashes, hijackings, or terrorist attacks are common and likely to happen. This is called overestimation of threat, a common misstep of the mind. We misjudge the potential for catastrophic consequences based on highly visible but extremely rare outliers. We confuse possibility with probability. A crash is possible, but it's definitely not probable. Crashes make the news precisely because they are rare. Specifically, in 2012, the International Air Transport Association, the trade association for the airline industry, recorded just one accident per 5 million flights on Western-built jets. And even if you're on that 1 in 5 million flight, of all passengers involved in U.S. plane crashes from 1983 to 2000, a full 96% survived. Tip number 4, tune in to what's going on around you. So take a page from the mindfulness book to root yourself in the safe, present moment. Keep yourself from spiraling into imaginary worst-case scenarios by looking around you and describing what you see. Look at each person who files past you down the aisle, describing them without judgment. Describe the interior of the plane, and look internally as well. Scan sensations, but don't interpret them. So my heart is beating quickly is fine, but stop short of, and that means I'm going to have a heart attack. Absorb yourself in what is, and you'll have less room for hypothetical what ifs. Tip number 5, use good old-fashioned distraction. To get your mind off a racing heart or catastrophic imaginary thoughts, tune outward, not inward. Soothing music works for some, but for others it reminds you that you're trying not to be nervous. So rather than trying to soothe yourself, which can feel too therapeutic, engage yourself with a riveting movie, a captivating book, or an addictive app. And plan ahead and bring something that you've really been wanting to read or watch so you're not limited to in-flight entertainment or whatever's in the airport bookshop. And although the research says distraction doesn't help you get used to flying, I say do whatever gets you through to baggage claim. Remember, zero judgment. So test out these 5 tips, and after a while, you might even like to fly. As for liking airline food or baggage fees, well, we'll leave that to the crazy guy trying to jimmy the door. And we're not done yet. Join me for part 2 of this series next week, where we'll tackle in-flight panic attacks and the truth about Xanax. If The Savvy Psychologist is useful to you, please share your love by liking on Facebook, adding me to your Google Plus circles, or emailing a link to someone important in your life. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Ellen Hendrickson. That's all for this week. Many thanks to aeronautics expert Ryan Kagi for his assistance with the facts in tip number 1, the physics of flight. A transcript of the podcast and references for the studies I mention are always available on quickanddirtytips.com. And a final note, remember that The Savvy Psychologist is strictly for informational purposes and does not substitute for psychiatric care or psychotherapy by a licensed professional. Any patient names have been changed and details altered to protect privacy. Thanks for listening, and see you next week for a happier, healthier mind.